Hi, everyone. It's Renee Coman here, and I'm very excited to be joining you all um, for this little presentation on how to build a culture. Receiving your questions throughout the session as well, so be sure to drop them below as well. A little bit about myself. I am the Managing Director of Distance Assistance. Founded the business back in 2017 with my co-founder, Rachel Owendyke. And that in itself is such a long story, and it was really built upon us connecting over my husband going into the mining industry and being a FIFO worker, fly in, fly out for 4 weeks at a time. And I reached out to her through LinkedIn and we connected. And it was interesting to hear her perspective because she was a lifestyle coordinator on these remote mine sites where mental health is actually double the Australian average, unfortunately, in these particular locations. So it was interesting to hear her perspectives on what organisations are doing to support employees that are away from their home for 4 weeks at a time and experiencing isolation in so many capacities. So it was interesting to exchange that and to talk. And from there, it just flourished, and we built Distance Assistance, where it's really about providing support to people that are working remotely. And who knew in 2020 how much the landscape for working has changed, and in many respects it will remain the same moving forward. It's become the new normal. So that's a little bit about myself and Distance Assistance and what we do. Um, in addition to that, I've spent the last few years, I did entrepreneurship as a minor at the University of the Sunshine Coast, studying a Bachelor of Creative Industries. And throughout that process, really ingrained myself with the innovation ecosystem here on the Sunshine Coast and also across the broader southeast Queensland. Connected, been running and facilitating startup weekends, those classic 54-hour hackathons where it's about collaborating, giving first and connecting with like-minded people, and going through that experience is where I really identified the pain point for myself as this FIFO wife, and connecting with different people and going, I know people in the industry, I have this skill set, and we merge them together to create our minimum viable product. So really ingrain myself in the ecosystem as a community leader, volunteering, giving first, running weekends, working at the Innovation Centre of the Sunshine Coast, collaborating with Sunshine Coast Council on different things. And throughout that process, I've been a startup, but also stood aside and supported other startup founders and realised the importance of talent. And I think that's what really gets me excited about working at the Innovation Centre of the Sunshine Coast. It's about retaining talent. Being a regional area, we lose a lot of the youth to the cities and the lifestyle that attracts. And, some of them do move back when they become parents, but how can we retain talent? How can we attract talent? And looking at the amazing things that was happening in Boulder and how the Boulder ecosystem so significantly grew, and it was to do with the talent and it was to do with the lifestyle. So whether you are a startup founder, you're working in a startup, you're an innovator yourself, and you're working within an innovative business, I think there's a lot that comes from having the right talent. Knowing within a startup there's so many different types of capital, but human capital is such an important factor. So that's why today I just wanted to talk, reflect on my experiences supporting other startups and kind of observing some traits and themes across those startups that have adopted well-being into their culture, and doing that from day dot as a startup, because it's easy to scale that instead of all of a sudden realizing you're a big company and now it has to become a part of your strategy. And it's not that it's impossible. There's just different challenges, and there's already some culture already established, so it's kind of balancing those. And then, of course, being a founder. So what is well-being? We hear these words. We live in this society where everyone's going out and getting a juice, or they're going and doing an F45 class, and there's some conceptions about what well-being really is. So I just thought I'd share some definitions with you just to kind of get us thinking on the same page to start off with. So well-being, the state of being happy, healthy, or successful, which is really interesting because for some reason you can't be all three. Why is that? I find that really, really interesting. So this is where, I can talk to you all day about the definitions in academics, peer-reviewed journals, and how the definitions of well-being and wellness have evolved over time. But I just thought this is a really interesting definition, and I'll come back to definitions because I think it's really important as an organisation. How do you define well-being or wellness within your organisation? The other definition I wanted to compare this to was wellness, the quality or state of being healthy, which I like the two of these because I think it's important to realize that you can be there's a quality particularly to do with your professional life, but well-being and being healthy isn't just refined to one type of healthy. You have your physical fitness, you have your nutrition, you have all these areas of your life that can influence what your sense of well-being is, and that's where for us we define well-being on 6 different pillars. So that's work, how you're feeling in terms of your satisfaction at work. Are you fulfilled? Are you fulfilling a purpose? Are you happy? Do you feel valued? Your mindset, how are you thinking? What thoughts are you having towards yourself? Are you feeling loved? Do you have a lot of hate talk and talk yourself down, which happens quite often in Australia with, tall poppy syndrome comes into play there a little bit more. But your mindset, which is obviously very topical being Mental Health Week. Connections, so it's just social connections. How much are you connecting with loved ones, your family, your friends? When was the last time you called a sibling or called mum and dad, or they reached out to you? And then your connections with your team at work. Your body, and we define body and fitness differently. So body to us is how much are you sleeping? How much water are you taking in? All of those little things, skin check. When did you last have a skin check? And just knowing the domino effects, sitting down, how often you're sitting down has on your overall well-being. Fuel, our body is a machine and we need to fuel that somehow. And that's with the choices of what we decide to digest. Are you eating your fruit and vegetable intake each day? Are you having enough iron? How are you absorbing iron? Is it through meat? Is it through other protein sources? And then your physical fitness, how much you're moving that body every single day. So that's how we define well-being. And I think this is where now, as a business, why does creating a culture of well-being matter so much? Why does it impact our bottom line? Why, as responsible corporate citizens, do we need to ensure that we're looking after the health and well-being of our employees? So I've got some statistics here from a few different research papers going over a period of time. But statistically, it demonstrates that engaged with having a wellness program in place, your engaged employees increase from 7% to 55%. Just think about that for alone. You think about what you just last paid for your wages in your last payment cycle. And just think about that return on investment. Like if you are paying, $10,000 in wages, and to think that maybe you've gone from 7% and then the output, if you can adopt a wellbeing program and increase the outputs and the productivity and the engagement, like up to 50, that's massive. Particularly when we do so many marketing activities to get more engaged customers. Well, imagine the commercial outputs if you could engage your employees so much more. When you are working within agile businesses and you're being innovative and you are, entering new markets, thinking creatively and being innovative is imperative to the bottom line. And some other research also states that self-reported creativity and innovation has increased from 20% to 72%, which is massive. Some other stats: decrease in sick leave. Again, that affects your bottom line. For that to decrease by 25%. And that HR leaders are blaming burnout for half the reasons they're losing their workforce annually. So you think about how much money have you spent previously, or how much money may you spend in a few years once you grow and you scale on recruitment. And the idea that you could reduce maybe some of that turnover every year by minimizing burnout, that can have a significant impact, again, on your bottom line, but just the culture and how satisfied your employees are, and just the morale. And then finally, the turnover, the cost that can actually have on total revenue. That's not profit, that's revenue. So they're really important. So just a few reasons why it is important. So to move along, I'm just going to slide across some recommendations. So I understand a few people following along today, you're wearing different hats. Some of you may be a startup founder, in a very senior role, maybe a managing director, have a broader team. So I've got some recommendations and 5 steps for yourselves. I have 5 steps for people here that may be in middle management and managing a team. So you may be in a larger existing organisation looking at ways to be more innovative and sparking new ideas, and why you're with SparkFest. And then I've also got some 5 recommendations on you as an individual and what you can do to adopt more healthier lifestyle choices for yourself, because it's about being able to role model wellbeing as well. So I have a total of 15 recommendations that hopefully you can identify with one of these 3 hats, and potentially you can take away your learning and share that with someone else in your team or someone else in your life. So I'll go through those, and then once we've gone through those, I'll open it up for some Q&A as well. So where to start? So if you are at the executive level, there's a couple of options here for you in adopting these choices. Sorry, I'm just covering part of my screen. Okay, so to define wellbeing, and this is going back to that definition at the start, how does your organisation want to define wellbeing? Is it about all areas of your life? Is it specifically thinking about those pillars? Is it, do you prioritize those? Are some of them just naturally given within your organisation? So define what wellbeing is, wellbeing or wellness, within your organisation. Once everyone then within the workplace has a sense of what that looks like, the second step is to link that to your organisational values. So if it's about professional development or profit, or what that is, how does wellbeing link to that? How does it fuel your ability as an organisation or an individual to what does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis? And I think that's where some organisations, they can talk about what their values are and they may be on the wall, but more importantly, what does values look like on a daily basis within your organisation? It's very easy to say, a lot easier to implement. But 3, updating your policies. What things do you have in place within your organisation to support people's wellbeing? Is there wellbeing days, mental health days? What kind of leave can people take? Can they take personal time off, just like their professional development, for their health and wellbeing? Just these little things that you may be able to incorporate. That in itself is a huge topic, which you could talk about for quite some time. But think about can you update existing policies, or if you're incorporating and creating new ones, how can you adopt a sense of well-being into that, just as important as health and safety is. 4, consider the whole employee. This goes back to our pillars. Understand that it's not just about someone's physical well-being, and there's the psychological as well, but how do all of these varied challenges and hats that people are balancing in their life, as a parent, balancing their finances, understanding really what are the needs, how many organizations out there have a persona on their target market and their customers they're trying to, convert? But do you understand what those motives and those drivers are, particularly the intrinsic motivators for your employees? It might be a really interesting lesson and a challenge for maybe some of your management to go through and understand what are all the needs of our employees, particularly now as our workplaces have changed and gone virtual, and in a mixed medium. And design a starting line. It's so easy to go, yeah, we're going to do all these amazing things. But if we are agile organizations, it's about creating a minimum an MVP. What is our minimum viable product? What is the most basic thing you can do to adopt some of these things and test it and iterate and constantly evolve, and then start adding new features and functions, just like if it was a product? What could that be for your organization? What could that be for your teams? And whilst it's easy just to go out there and jump in and do something, it's also about designing the design, right? So I heard, I've been learning a little bit more about service design recently, and it was interesting where one organization, they wanted to be more fun and creative and attract, the best talent by being a cool place to work. So what they did is they went and got, a ping pong table, and they put it out there, and they thought, yep, we're awesome. The employees are going to love it. And unfortunately, it had a really negative impact. And that negative impact was because for months, the staff had been asking for new ergonomic chairs. So really think about what your current needs are. So go out, just if you are creating a new product or service, talk to your market, talk to your employees. What are the things they may like to see? Maybe you might just limit this to a really small team or to a small department, but maybe think about what that looks like and design that process. Design what that minimum viable product is for your employees. So they're 5 tips from an organizational level, from an executive level, on what you may look to do. Moving along, we've got where to start, 5 tips for middle management. So first of all, give your employees a voice. Provide an opportunity for there to be open feedback loops. And whilst it may be some of these things we know should be in place, reflect on where you're actually providing that for your staff at the moment. Is it through a weekly meeting? Is it the end of a project where you're opening the dialogue and go, what did we learn from this? What could we do better? And create a sense of trust where your employees' opinions matter. These things build trust. It creates a safe environment for your employees. But the sooner, obviously, they start to feel valued and loved and part of the team, their sense of belonging and connectedness within the team will grow. And it is remembering about those pillars. It's all these areas that impact someone's well-being. The actual work environment itself. Now, again, this has changed a little bit with COVID. Some people are working completely from home. Some are still fully in the office. Some are juggling a little bit of both. But just think about, how do you encourage your employees just to get out of the building and get some fresh air and some vitamin D and to get away from their desk? Is there the ability for them to go outside and have their lunch? Maybe it's having a morning stand-up meeting and doing a walk around the block. In the process, everyone gets their coffee. Once they've got their coffee, you go for a walk around the block, but you have a stand-up outside walking meeting. Have some walking tracks. Have maybe one block that is the equivalent of a 5-minute meeting, and maybe another track and another route for a 10-minute or a half an hour meeting. And just think of ways that you can mix it up and change the actual environment, because we know your environment has a lot to do with creative thinking as well. 3, model well-being. Some companies over, particularly in Europe, have actually made some really interesting changes where they have locked down their employees' inboxes and their ability to send and receive emails outside of business hours. Now, I know that sounds crazy, and whether you agree or disagree, I'm not encouraging one or the other, but it's modeling and just kind of thinking about what can you do as an organization and what can you do as an employer. For myself, with my team, I at times will send emails on a Sunday. But I may have taken a couple of days off during the week, and I communicate with my staff that I have, just because I am choosing to send emails on a Sunday, I have absolutely no expectations whatsoever for them to do that. So I role model balancing my time and making a point of balancing these different needs within myself, but also getting them to just realize that I've had a long morning and I'm going to walk away from my desk and role model the importance of getting away, changing the environment, and making healthier lifestyle choices. An interesting one for those out there, if you've heard of the 5 love languages. I learned about this when my partner was working away, that we as individuals have 5 different ways in which we like to receive love, and we have different ways in which we express love. And whilst that is one of my recommendations for you as an individual, on the next slide, the same gentleman, Gary Chapman, who created that, has also built upon that and has created the 5 languages for appreciation in the workplace. So as a manager or someone looking after a team, I would heavily encourage you to go online and have a look at that and find the different ways that members of your team may like to receive and express appreciation, because it's different for everyone. And then performance reviews. Everyone likes to know that they're doing the right thing, and maybe the performance reviews are a really important time for the employees, again, to have a voice and to express, what their intrinsic motivators are. If they feel that some of the roles that they're performing are actually outside of their job description, and a good time for you to reflect on a lot of things, but being able to actually give performance review and letting your staff know that they're doing a really good things, because sometimes we just get so bogged down in all the priorities in the business, we forget to pat our staff on the back and truly tell them how much we appreciate them and the incredible things that they're doing. And then 5 steps for yourself. I know it's really obvious, and there's so much commentary going on at the moment about social media and all these platforms and how obsessed we're becoming with the digital world, but limit your time on social media. One of the best things I did, I went to China and I knew I was going to have issues with different things. So I just deleted all of the platforms from my phone. And as a marketer, that was a little challenging, but my gosh, it was so amazing. And also, I still have I have since reinstalled a couple of them back on my devices. I've tried to consciously make more time for prioritizing the quality one-on-one time I have with the really important people in my life. Making time to catch up face-to-face with my girlfriends, or, getting outside with the kids. So limiting time on social media and reinvesting that time with quality one-on-one time with those that you love. Discover your own love language. My gosh, I used to get so frustrated with my husband every day after work. He would come home and he would wipe down the bench. I one day actually engaged a professional cleaner to come in and do the equivalent of a bond clean in my house, because I took offense to him coming and cleaning. I had the bond cleaner come in, they were there all day. My husband got home, and what's the first thing he did? He started wiping down the bench. And it was at that point I just went, you know what? Doesn't matter whatever I do, he is always going to do this. And it was then, fast forward 5 years, I discovered love languages and acts of kindness. That was his way of showing love to me. But at the time, I didn't realize that, and I got really, really frustrated. So it's funny that people do things, and once you understand why they're doing them, and it's their way of expressing love, it can really, really change the dynamics in a very positive way within your relationship. So I heavily encourage you, Google love languages. There's a quiz you can do online, which helps you understand the way that you like to express and receive love. And I've done that as well. It's not specific to romantic relationships, it's with my children as well. So I have one child who just wants quality one-on-one time. So me sitting there playing board games and Monopoly, I flipped a Monopoly board on the weekend, first time I've ever done it. But to her, that is the best way I can show love to her. My other daughter, it's all about me buying her things and telling her that I love her. And now they both understand why I may spend one time more with the other, and they don't get jealous because they understand the importance of why they like to receive that love in that way. Create a Sunday list. I have a little notification on my phone every Sunday evening that it asks me the question, what will I do this week for my family? What will I do this week for my career? And what will I do this week for myself? And me doing this and really thinking about my week and plotting out, I'll go, okay, well, maybe next weekend I have my uni intensive. So that's what I'm doing for my career. What am I doing for myself? Well, I'm going to get up at 4:30 and I'm going to make sure I go to my F45 class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week. And what am I going to do for my family? Maybe I might cook them an amazing dinner or something like that. But just try and carve some time on a Sunday night when you kind of tend to be a little bit more cleared in your head and thinking about the week ahead. Have that pop up come up on your phone and consciously think about those things. Always be fun new ways to be creative, embrace new things, whether it's visiting museums, going to new cultural events, draw, whatever it is. There's a lot of people out there that don't believe they're creative. Everyone is a creative. I truly believe that. It's just tapping into your creative channel. So experience as much as you can and find that channel. And of course, prioritizing sleep. It has such a domino effect on so many areas of our life. We need 7 to 9 hours every night to thrive. So prioritize it and don't make it a luxury, make it a necessity. So they're my tips on where to start in adopting a culture of well-being within your life, either as an executive, as middle management, or as an employee and an individual. So I'm going to quickly get close to wrapping it up and open it up to questions. So if you want to go ahead and drop some questions for me below, I'll just open that link and we'll quickly get through those. For those that want, just as they come through, be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn as well, Renee Coman. Reach out if you have any questions. I'm looking at probably pushing out a number of different resources over the coming weeks. My business partner and I, we've got a lot happening over the next month in particular, and I'm really, really keen to be sharing some resources, both on a personal level as a professional, but also helping organisations as well. All right, so I've got some few questions that have, some comments that have come through. Let's have a look. Concise, easy to understand. So thank you for that. One here in the Q&A. What's the role of mentorship and buddying in enabling wellbeing in the workplace? So what's the role of mentorship and buddying? So I guess I immediately within an ecosystem look at what mentorship and buddying means for a startup founder and what have you. When it comes to enabling wellbeing in the workplace, some organizations actually have internal wellbeing warriors, and they may be champions, people within your organization, just like we have union delegates who go in there and represent the organizations and champion that. You can also have wellbeing champions as well. So they definitely can play a really important role because it turns them into advocates, and it's not something that's coming from management. It's a peer, it's a colleague that's giving them practical information. So I think that can play a very important role, particularly in helping an organisation create a culture of wellbeing in a quicker time frame and having a really good return on investment on that. Another question here from Emma: how do you encourage employees to embrace change rather than simply continue doing what they've always done? Look, it's a really interesting question, Emma. I think it's more than anything, it is about making small lifestyle choices day after day. Going back to the question about mentor and buddyship, having advocates, having people within your organization who have made some healthier choices and they can see the benefits, and having them becoming the advocates, because they can encourage people to then embrace those changes themselves. If there's a peer that they've worked next to for the last 3 years and they can see that all of a sudden they've got a bit of a leap in their step and they're smiling a bit more often, it's those things they go, something's different. What are you doing? Tell me about it. And those conversations can actually help spark those other people to embrace those changes. But that's it.